if you look at the historical background a little bit, the French colonies and the British colonies, they have a slightly different trajectory, and my experience in both was different. As I mentioned, one is of course the diaspora and these trade ties, when the dhows and all went along with the monsoon currents, into and they were very adventurous. Majority were from Gujarat.
Okay.
Both Muslim and Hindu traders or business persons. They started small settlements when they didn't have anyone to any ship to come back by, so they started living along the coast. Many often it's said women are the holders or the carriers of cultural identity, and that I think was visible in all these places.
Hello everyone, welcome to CyberPeace podcast. Today we have with us Ambassador Manju Seth. Ambassador Manju Seth worked as an ambassador and consul general of India to Madagascar and Comoros. She has extensive experience in India and overseas in dealing with diverse issues relating to international relations, governance, policy matters, administration, publicity, media, protocol, culture, international affairs, and economic and commercial matters. She frequently appears on various media outlets for panel discussions on foreign policy and diplomacy related issues. Welcome to CyberPeace podcast, Ambassador Manju Seth.
Pleasure to be here.
Right. So, I'm sure it's going to be a very intellectual conversation, about the African region, about the world order, So, to start off with, can you shed some light on your diplomatic career in the African region?
Certainly. It has been a very, wonderful journey, and it has been a very interesting and in some ways even eye-opening, my posting there, my working in that region. Though I was not posted in Mauritius, but I would still like to talk a little bit about, because I was interacting with them. I visited there, and I was posted in Madagascar and Comoros. But I had the opportunity to also go to South Africa on a visit, and I also I worked in Reunion Island, which is an overseas territory of France, but it's in the Indian Ocean region. It's called the twin island to Mauritius. But it's why I'm raising these two distinct points is because if you look at the historical background a little bit, the French colonies and the the British colonies, they have a slightly different trajectory, and my experience in both was different. In Madagascar and Comoros, for instance, since it was a French colony, it was a totally very Frenchified, should I say, a French kind of atmosphere. The French language is still widely spoken, and though my French was good, but it was not absolutely, great. So, but I still managed to make myself understood and understand what was happening. So it's a very interesting experience, and to understand how, while it's part of Africa, it is still an ocean, Indian Ocean, and that island culture and that island feel was very special. Mauritius, on the other hand, was interestingly both French and British colonies. So they had a very interesting mix of of English and French. And of course, the majority there, 75%, are Indian origin, 70 to 75%. So it is very interesting interacting with all of them and seeing the distinctiveness of each African country, but also some similarities. And so I really had I had a very learning experience. It was a learning experience. It was an opportunity to work and to see diverse approaches, diverse ideas, and how India and these countries were working together on a host of issues. So it was something, and it was really very nice that I could be there in Africa, because overall perceptions about Africa were not, now it's changed, but they were not very positive. And so it was very nice to see that how our interaction over the years has increased and where we have reached today. India-Africa ties have really reached a certain level. They were good at that time,
right,
but they are much, much better now.
Mhm. Right. So, like, I'm more curious about what kind of professions are these Indians, involved in Mauritius? Can you shed some light on that?
In Mauritius,
Yes.
as in Madagascar and Comoros, uh, the Indians are in diverse areas.
Okay.
But in Mauritius, for instance, they went, their histories are different.
Mm-hmm.
In Mauritius, for instance, and even in Reunion Island, they went as what were called indentured laborers, or girmitias, they were called.
Okay.
And so their should I say, development journey, or how they have progressed and over the generations. So now they are third and fourth generation, fifth generation Indians in these in Reunion Island, in Mauritius, and they are involved in government,
Right.
and they are involved in businesses now.
Mm-hmm.
And in of course shops, and it's very interesting in agriculture. Agriculture was also, because they went as indentured labor to work on the agricultural fields for the British, for the French. But in Mauritius, for instance, again, there is, of course, all religions they went, but it is seen that the majority who went from as indentured labor, they took some time coming up the value chain, so to speak. Now, of course, they're in government, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But in business, the initial traders who went from, say, Gujarat or from the coastal areas along to these countries, along the eastern coast
To
of Africa.
to Durban, Cape Town.
Yes, so they all were very well off.
Right.
So
right.
they really are in, many of them in many of these countries, they sort of are major contributors to their economies. And, so the two kinds of diaspora that are there.
Okay. So, what are some of the historical factors that have shaped India's diplomatic ties with African countries?
As I mentioned, one is, of course, the diaspora.
Yes.
And these trade ties, when the dhows and all went along with the monsoon currents, into, and
Mm-hmm.
and they were very adventurous. Majority were from Gujarat.
Okay.
Both Muslim and Hindu traders or business persons.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that sometimes what happened was, how did they start settling? Because the ships used to only go, I think once in 6 months, or well, sometimes once in 2 months, it depended. When the next ship would come back or would sail to that particular place. So they would take their goods and go there, and they started small settlements when they didn't have anyone to any ship to come back by. So they started living along the coast. In Mauritius, along the entire coast, along the eastern coast, in Madagascar, in Comoros, for instance.
Uh-huh.
So it was a very interesting, and many of them, when I met some of them, they said, we had no way to go. We were stranded. There was no ship for the next so many months, so we stayed here. Many years, rather. Some of them stayed on. And so then they started living there, and they had these settlements, and they really have done, contributed to the economy, as I said, and done very well. Most of them, of course, there will be exceptions to that everywhere. But one interesting point which I noted was that while, maybe the indentured labor, maybe the others from other countries, they, intermarried, let me say, with the locals.
Yes.
Indians, by and large, did not.
Mm.
And so they maintained their sort of distinct identity, by and large. And they're, many often it's said women are the holders or the carriers of cultural identity. And that, I think, was visible in all these places, And they, even today, have very strong cultural links in Mauritius. In Mauritius, of course, is slightly different from the other countries. And it's also called, as you know, mini India. But still, it has gone through all these phases, and they became very active in the political field, unlike in the other countries. That was another distinction that I noticed between the Francophone and the Anglophone countries in Africa. The ones who were Anglophone, they were more actively involved in their independence movements. Of course, everywhere they were involved, the others were also involved, but to get their independence. But Indians were more, sort of at the forefront, let me put it. And so we find that the Francophone and Anglophone journeys in Africa are quite distinct in many ways, with many similarities, but quite distinct.
Very similar in terms of food habits too.
Food habits, and as I mentioned, the cultural aspect, many of them have carried on with that. And many of them, if you see now, actually, now means now when I was there, and also now when I see, they still want to wear saris.
Right.
Especially in Reunion Island and in Mauritius,
Yes.
Madagascar, also all the Indian origin people, but also the locals. I saw wanted to, their interest in India and their goodwill towards India was, to a large extent determined by these diaspora who were there in all these countries, including in South Africa, of course.
When you talk about food habits, you mention about spices, right? That's like a very
Spices.
Important aspect.
Of course, spices, of course, was a very important aspect. But also, the samosas, very popular, but very often non-veg.
Okay.
When they say samosas, it's very often a non-veg with chicken in it or something in it. And also, I had been invited somewhere and they said, we've made Indian food.
Okay.
So I was wondering, and it was a local, it was not an Indian origin family. And they said this is part of what they call the Creole cuisine, a mixture of amalgam of Indian, African, and local whatever. And it was a dal, a special kind of dal, made like something like dal makhani, but not with that much of spices, but with similar kind of some spices, but with similar kind of procedure of making it. So it was interesting, and some of the vegetables also were made Indian style. So it was interesting to see that how it has all sort of adapted, amalgamated, and become part of their local food habits, their local culture, and of course their day-to-day sort of habits, etc.
Yes. So, in what ways can India and African nations collaborate to address common challenges such as climate change and food security?
Yes, this is a very, big challenge for the world. And of course, if you would recall, recently India had got this MOU, I'm forgetting with which country, just slipping my mind, with one of the countries that they would, dal, grow dal, and they were sort of and give land for growing dal, which we would all import. India would import the full amount. That was, during the Prime Minister's visit. And it was decided that this was something that, we can work together on. But at the same time, training, capacity building, giving them, working together to improve the quality, the productivity, also, if you remember, or if you know, water is a problem in many countries in Africa for agriculture. So this drip irrigation method was introduced by Indian companies with the help, of course, under our development program and development partnership program. So the drip irrigation method of irrigating the fields was introduced, or was offered to them, and they took it, and it's quite popular and has been very, very productive in that sense, and led to the desired results. So private companies went and implemented it. And
how has the progress been so far?
I've been told it's very good.
Okay.
But I don't recall the figures now for it. But yes.
And since how many years?
For many years. For many years. I think it's more than 10 to 12 years that has been going on. Because even when I was there, it was already there. And I think so much before that. I don't remember the exact time that it was introduced. It's slipping my mind. But it is very much a part of the collaboration. And India has been, a development partner, right, from its independence. And it is encouraged, of course, as you're well aware, that it was many of the freedom movements or the freedom struggles were inspired by India's example. And India has been collaborating with these countries since they became majority of them in countries in Africa. And again, because we also have a shared past, a shared colonial past, so that was a commonality. And India had that approach that, let's help people, or let's share our development journey with other countries so that they can also come up. Of course, we have been, scaling that up over the years, and in recent years, it's gone even more rapid change has taken place in that field. And not only in agriculture, the other thing that I was told was seeds, that I read about was seeds, better seeds, and fertilizers. As a matter of fact, in Madagascar, we had a whole project to increase their, because they were once the breadbasket of Africa, and for various reasons they had gone down, and sugar factories as well, sugar basket or sugar suppliers. So they, were very keen that India help them in that. So we sent tractors, escorts tractors were sent, and they wanted modern, our methods, because they want to learn from our green revolution, and they really, it requested us for seeds, for special fertilizers, and what is the best method of, planting and at the right time, the seasons and all that. So our experts had gone to give training to them. Experts had also gone to give training in the use of the tractors, and it was a very good project. But unfortunately, it got mired in a lot of controversy because the then government, I think, had to step down. And it's the history of in Africa is a little unfortunate that such a good opportunity was not fully utilized. And when we were there, we were, this all stuck at the port. All that we sent for I don't know how many, 3 years, 4 years, just lying at the port because of the change of government, and the new government saying we will do it or not do it. I don't know. We sorted it out to a large extent, but much of it was ruined. But still, it has got back on track partly, So while we were there, we said, try to sort this out. I said, but it's for your good. Why did you not use it all these years? I tried to talk to I mentioned the president also when I had the opportunity to meet him. And they said, no, we will, we want to. And but it was a little unfortunate. The whole thing got mired in, all these change of government and with I think, other countries saying that we will not allow this government to function, and they didn't recognize them because they felt it was undemocratic. Mm-hmm. And so all those kind of pulls and pressures, I think, are quite high in all of Africa, where Africans somehow used to feel quite sort of, unable to do what they wanted, the way they wanted, because of these external pressures by all other countries. But agriculture in other countries has been, the agricultural collaboration has been very effective in much of Africa. And I think many of them have benefited, and they have appreciated India's role in helping them to scale up their productivity. And also the millets program that was launched last year, because the millets and cassava and other things are what was their mainstay. Now, they said wheat and this is not indigenous to us. It's not, it has come from outside. And millets and cassava and other grains that grew there. I was told by, I think, the ambassador of Lesotho once that, this was something, we are so thrilled that the millets program has been launched, and we really want to reintroduce it in our country as well. I mean, not reintroduce, we want to scale it up. And with this initiative of India, I think it will be a big plus point. And we want to also tell the world that we have gluten-free stuff already growing there, and we've been having it. And but again, because of television, modern technology, young children wanting to have only wheat products everywhere around the world, I think so. But now it's getting back, and that millets program has also been welcomed. And I think it's something which everybody for good health, I think, should adapt. And I think the Africans have also taken to that in a big way.
Okay, so I keep watching these documentaries where they show up, kids suffering in terms of food crisis, water crisis in countries like Somalia, Congo.
Yes, yes.
This is just like off the track, but I'm a little curious. Can you tell me more about it, because like you would have seen it.
Yes. So
this would
yes,
be like-
Somalia and all. I think again, it's a little unfortunate to while they had the resources, but because of various reasons, they've been unable to capitalize it. And whatever resources they have, their governments, I think, as they say, very often your leadership fails you, or your governments fail you, fail the people. So there have been these crises of water, of water management, of electricity crisis. And that's where India is, coming up with the renewable energy and, and other biofuels, etc. And we are, in collaboration with them, we want to scale it up so that, the world's food crisis, energy crisis, and climate crisis are addressed. So Somalia and other countries in Africa, yes, even in Madagascar we saw that. There was a lot of poverty, while at the same time there were pockets of, wealth. Like in any, I think that's we can't do away with that difference. But the difference should be a little more, managed, let me say, and with the very poorest of the poor not being in such miserable conditions. They may not match up to the level of the wealthy, but at least basics, they should have, if as far as possible. And I think most countries have understood that, and we are as part of our development, India's development partnership and development aid and all that we give. We have looked at what each country in Africa wants, what their people want. Again, unfortunately, sometimes the leadership doesn't always, match up or come up with the right things. But by and large, we've seen that in our experience that they have looked at their own interests, their own aspirations, and it has been a good journey, and a change is taking place and has taken place in Africa, not only with India's collaboration, but with specifically with India's partnership. They have scaled up and it's been appreciated, and I think that's a positive.
So what role do cultural exchanges play in strengthening diplomatic ties between India and African countries?
I think what I saw also, and what is very interesting, Bollywood.
Okay.
Bollywood has been a great, they love it. And earlier this North Africa, as I said, Francophone and, Anglophone divide was visible. But of course, we have been, all are now with latest technology, of course. But even then, in earlier years, we had dubbed in Arabic, we had dubbed in, in French and in English, of course, the movies. So dubbed or with subtitles. And our serials, Mahabharat. And, in Paris, I saw that. Even in Paris, I'm just diverging for a moment. But there also, they loved our Indian serials, and they loved our many locals as well. French people, not only the migrant French. I mean, let me not say migrant, but I'm the other who are not originally from France. But yes, second generation, third generation, even they, because they are French completely, and they also, all of them used to be very, happy. And Bollywood dancing had become so popular in Paris, in Madagascar, and even I saw that in Mauritius, of course. And they have, while maintaining their Indian sort of traditions, Bollywood played a great role. And this, I think, has contributed. When people are, if you look at soft power, when people are positively inclined to you, to a particular country, through the use of soft power, cuisine, clothes, culture, movies, if those become popular, then the general perception in the people and in the government is that this is a positive country, a positive view is created about that country. And that definitely is one of the factors, not the only factor, but it is an important factor in strengthening of diplomatic ties. And we've seen it across when you interact at higher levels. You see they say that, and another thing that I found as part of our cultural exchanges was, of course, we have music and all our dance and all which they like, but Bollywood and from other Mollywood and all whatever we want to call other cinema. And other cinema, we broadly look at it as Bollywood. I mean, term it as Bollywood, but it's really Indian cinema, Indian serials, which are very, very popular across in most of Africa. And you would have seen those, WhatsApp forwards of some African kids, singing Bollywood and dancing and enjoying themselves. And this is also the people. It's not something at a higher level that they are looking at, but everyone has been, is influenced by this. And the only other slight drawback is that they, when they come to India, they expect everyone to be like Bollywood, like the families in Bollywood, like it is Bollywood. But it's not the case. So sometimes they do say, but India is not completely like that. Right. But yes, they understand that it is a partly fictional creation of the actual fact in India.
Besides, the Bollywood and the Indian cinema, are there any other aspects of soft power that are visible in the African region?
Yes. One of, for their weddings, for instance,
right?
In recent years, a lot of clothes, because they want to wear a lehenga. In Madagascar, for instance, I walked into a hotel. I'd gone for a function there, for a luncheon function.
Okay.
And on one of the floors, as I was climbing up the stairs, I found a girl and a boy standing in complete Indian lehenga and, with complete the same jewelry, bride and groom, like an Indian bride and groom. So I said, are you all Indian origin? They didn't look to me, but I still asked them.
Okay.
They said, no, we are Malagasy. I said, then what's, she said, oh, but we have to get married like this. It's so beautiful. So that influence was very, of clothes, of the cuisine, of course. And also I found that medical tourism has been a big, many of them have been coming to India. Education. And as part of our iTech program, we have regular training for not only and scholarships through our ICCR.
Right.
So along with all these are other aspects of our soft power, our culture. Cultural sort of scholarships. We give scholarships for dance, we give for music, we give for studies, across the board, and now even in cyber. We give announced scholarships for Africa and for other countries. Wherever we have certain skills or we have certain strengths, we try and share it with them, and they're happy to have. Of course, we haven't reached the stage where the first preference is India, but yes, we are getting there. A lot of them are looking at India. Earlier, it used to be only the West, so US and UK and other. That their soft power was so strong in those areas, unmatched. So we are there. We are getting there. We have, our soft power is beginning to match them, and many more are now opting for medical treatment in India. Of course, medical treatment has been there for a long time, and
it's
also
been very popular in South as well.
Everywhere.
Yes.
So huge numbers of people are coming in, and so that's a positive point. These are our soft skills and our soft power that we are projecting, and that creates goodwill, and eventually, because for instance, in Madagascar and Comoros, their presidents wanted to come for medical treatment to AIMS or to Apollo or somewhere. So we had to, we of course facilitated, and because they're heads of government, special treatment is given. You have to give them the due protocol, and they're very happy with that, and the treatment was good, and so then the word got around that if you want to get good treatment, you don't have to go to the UK, you don't have to go there, you can come, or to France, you can come to India. And so I think that has also been a very important element of our soft power.
So how do the political systems in India and various African countries shape their diplomatic interactions?
I think that has not been an important element, at least with India, their government or their systems of governance, because we have not been in the business of determining or influencing what kind of governance they should have, or any country should have. we would like to focus on our own governance, I think. And so that has not been a major factor, but yes, if there is conflict and if there is, unrest, as there has been, and internal, sort of revolutions or protests and all that. So that does impact, the diplomatic ties, because you're not able to do your normal diplomatic functions, and you're not able to interact because the government is, not very stable, or sometimes they're too centric, personality centric. So then it becomes sometimes a little more difficult to have to have an interaction. But I don't think we have really. That has not been the reason for impacting our diplomatic relations.
So, how can India and Africa collaborate in the field of education to enhance skills and knowledge transfer?
Yes, we are already doing it, and we've. I grew up in Khadakwasla, and I know from then that military training we have been giving them, and we also set up academies in military training academies in I think Ethiopia and one more country, and we had officers coming in, or the students coming in for training in India and doing their courses. So many of them have studied in India, or many of their top defense personnel or have studied in India or have their training in India. So that was a very important thing, and we have scaled it up. So it has been a very, further, the IIT Zanzibar, IIT Madras campus has been set up in Zanzibar recently. So that is again a positive thing, and they're looking for that. And skill centers. Under our development partnership, we have already established skill centers across Africa in many countries, and based on what each of them wanted, based on what they were looking for, including IT, including in research, and in
How about diplomacy?
And diplomacy, they come here, yes.
Yeah,
they come for our on a regular
exchanges.
basis. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, on a regular basis, the diplomats are here at the FSI, and we have a good collaborative mechanism for that. They come here for training, they come here for courses, and that I think creates a lot of synergies between two countries when they are training together, when they are working together, and defense collaboration. I think everything is a contributory factor. And as far as skills, they're looking for skills, and now they are looking for cutting edge skills, entrepreneurship and other things. So we have set up these. Earlier we were focusing only on the basic level skills. I like what we have at the ITIs, but now, as you see, the IIT has come, but other higher level skills of how to start your businesses, how for SMEs and MSMEs, the micro and small medium enterprises.
Right.
So for them as well, and for others, for doing research and innovation, already the skill centers have been set up in different countries, and I think we are scaling that up.
So, what initiatives could be implemented to promote greater people-to-people connectivity between India and Africa?
Some of the initiatives have already been taken. For instance, we have increased our e-visas for, I think, 31 countries or something in Africa. We're giving e-visas, so that is a positive thing. People can travel more easily. And as I said, for medical tourism as well. We have, many more. We are facilitating that, and they are happy to come here. And for instance, in Madagascar, kidney problems, they had a lot of kidney problems, and they, constantly, because of their diet or it's genetic, and they were saying diabetes also, and other things are also endemic. So that is another thing that we have facilitated. And as a matter of fact, there was a proposal by one of the hospitals, that come to by Madagascar, to set up a facility there itself in collaboration with one of the local hospitals, local government hospital, to set up those facilities, and then to take that up and to do the initial thing there, and if required, bring them to India. Apollo has already done it in Mauritius. It's happening. They have a center there, which looks after. We have an eye center in Agarwal Eye Center, I think.
Right,
it is in Madagascar, which is again doing great work. Okay. And people are so happy with it, because eyes, they're saying cataract is so rampant there, and they were able to operate
Right.
and set right, and give them, do all whatever is required.
Right.
And there was a lot of demand for that Indian diagnostics should also go there. I don't know what, I haven't checked recently what has happened.
Like when I've visited like Africa many times, I've heard people saying that most of the Indians are like doctors.
Yes,
so
yes.
the
Doctors,
hospitals are
teachers.
present.
As a matter of fact, I think it was in Ethiopia and I think in Nigeria that we had huge number of teachers who had gone at the primary school level.
Mhm.
They wanted them to come. So you meet anyone. They say our English, you can see, is not have an African accent, because we have been taught by Indian teachers, and we are so grateful to them. They were so good. They were so excellent in schools, primary schools.
Mhm.
We've heard, of course, in colleges and as I mentioned, in the military academies and other places. But at that primary school level, the teachers, many teachers went, and I think they were extremely appreciated by the government, by the kids, by the people, and some Indian schools are also being set up,
Right.
and have been set up and are being set up. But the fact that teachers had gone in, and they say today, one of them was telling me, we still recruit Indian teachers from India because we know the value they bring
Right.
to the table. So I think that is another positive thing. So that's again a people-to-people connect that has been created, and which contributes to strengthening our ties, because these same people, when they reach higher levels
Mhm.
in governance, then they know that this is a country from which we can learn more and we can contribute more, and it'll be a win-win situation for both sides. So I think that's where we are that's where soft power and these kind of people-to-people connectivity, they further contribute to our bilateral diplomatic ties.
And also, like most of the Indian teachers, or majority of them, they're like intellectuals, so they play a major role in knowledge transfer.
Absolutely, knowledge transfer also.
Right.
And for the doctors part that you mentioned,
Yes,
doctors, nurses are also going in a big way. They're being sort of recruited from here and being taken to countries in Africa, but of course in other countries as well. But also for training.
Mhm.
I remember when the COVID thing happened.
Right.
Then again, at that point, we were training online
Mhm.
nurses and paramedical staff in different countries how to handle the COVID crisis.
Mhm.
So that, and of course, our COVID Maitri, as we called it, was again a very successful,
Mhm.
which was again a people-to-people connected endeavor.
Mhm.
But the fact that we sort of were able to online train their nurses, paramedical staff, and their doctors of how to handle this crisis, and of course to supply them the equipment and other things, including for cancer.
Right.
So I think all these things have also been major contributors to our bilateral ties and to people connect.
Okay, so today we have seen a shift in the global order. There are too many uncertainties involved, in terms of geopolitical conflicts. So the new thing is the cybersecurity conflicts. So keeping that in mind, what are the key challenges faced by India and Africa in the field of cybersecurity, and how can they overcome these challenges?
I think cyber criminals are everywhere. They are quick to pick up the technology and misuse it. And it's already happening as we see. And it's evolving so rapidly. So it is important for everyone to get together and work together. But of course, particularly in Africa, particularly, for us, because Africa, is a huge population as well, young population who are very savvy and with many more phones and connectivity and use of technology increasing so rapidly. And as we were mentioning, AI is embedded in your phones now.
Yes.
Already. So the challenges are huge, and we have to work together. And of course, while we are also scaling up our sort of expertise in all this, we also have to help scale up what is happening in Africa, because I believe I was reading somewhere that there are huge cyber criminals based in Kenya or somewhere, and they are targeting, and they are targeting
Africa, but
everywhere around the world,
yes.
around the world.
Yes.
But particularly if you look at Africa, then these countries are also vulnerable for other people. And I think we need to, collaborate. And we have, we have CyberPeace, of course, and we have the cybersecurity unit that we have set up recently, which is a very important agency for ensuring that cyber criminals don't get the better of us, and that this technology is regulated. I think regulation has to be the priority for all governments and all countries. It is just they're not able to reach consensus yet, from what I know, but I may be wrong. But from what I know, the final consensus on regulating cyberspace, regulating AI, regulating all this is not fully in place yet. And we all have to address this very, very urgently and work together, because otherwise, airplanes, ships going along the coast or along in the Indian Ocean, Africa on that side, India on this side, they could just compromise and control the navigation systems.
The sea pirates.
Sea pirates,
Yes.
or even these cyber criminals sitting anywhere.
Right.
And and war could be done very quietly through this.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen
Yes,
in the coming
years. Already, drones we thought was for the
Yeah.
good of humanity, but we can see what has happened to drones. And similarly for cybersecurity also. So it's very important that all countries work together, particularly, of course, in Africa and India. And of course, I think already skills training has begun, and we can offer, and I think we've offered it also, and we're working together, from what I'm aware, with countries around the world and with Africa as well, to see that cyber criminals don't get the better of us, and that we can harness the benefits of the cyber developments and the cyber progress and the fast developing new technology that is coming. Not be overwhelmed by it, but address it and regulate it.
Right. So we've come to the end of the podcast, Ambassador. So to conclude, what message would you like to give for CyberPeace?
As I just said, cyber security is of prime importance, because the potential for good is matched or outpaced by the potential for harm. So I think, including of creating unrest, not letting there be peaceful coexistence. India, of course, as part of its overall ethos and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and other elements of peaceful coexistence, right from ancient times, and even since we became independent, we've always believed
In peace.
in peace and peaceful coexistence.
Right.
So I think CyberPeace has a major role to play in ensuring that it is a force for good, a force for peace, and that cyber AI and cyber technology is used for good of people, for maintaining peace in the world and ensuring peaceful coexistence.
Thank you, Ambassador. So we come to the end of the podcast. It was a pleasure having you, and we look forward to collaborating you further on behalf of CyberPeace. Thank you so much.